Greetings, esteemed viewers. Welcome to a dark and epic journey into history's most disturbing trial. Picture a grand, solemn throne room where a faded husk sits in royal robes, facing a furious pope. This is no myth. In the year 897, a departed soul was brought to a ruthless court of law. Why would the absolute holiest leader of Rome put a silent predecessor on trial for past sins? Prepare yourselves, as we finally uncover the grim secrets of the infamous Cadaver Synod tonight. It is January in the year 897. A heavy and tragic silence fills the Grand Basilica. Flickering beeswax candles cast long, eerie shadows across the cold stone walls of St. John Lateran. At the center of this sacred hall sits a tragic figure, securely bound tightly to the papal throne. It is the silent, withered remains of former Pope Formosus, departed for over 7 months. His mortal form is entirely desiccated, resembling old parchment stretched over a silent visage. Yet this faded vessel is fully dressed in the most magnificent, gold-embroidered papal vestments. A heavy, majestic, jeweled triple tiara rests awkwardly upon his frail and fallen crown. Pacing furiously before the silent accused is the reigning pontiff, the mighty Pope Stephen VI. His gaunt face is fiercely twisted in sheer rage, his eyes burning with absolute, fanatical madness. He points an accusatory finger at the fallen leader, screaming charges of perjury and treason.
Answer me!
Historical records state that Stephen's furious voice echoed like thunder inside the holy sanctuary. But the departed cannot speak. They cannot defend themselves against such truly venomous allegations. To solve this madness, a terrified young monk is forced to crouch in the dark shadows behind the throne. Trembling with sheer terror, the young boy must answer every vicious question on behalf of the departed. Cold sweat pours down the young deacon's frightened face as he stammers out feeble, heartbreaking apologies. "I was truly wrong," the boy whispers, acting as the solemn voice of a man long returned to the dust. The atmosphere is utterly suffocating, thick with the scent of decay and burning beeswax candles. The papal guards stand frozen, their faces pale, entirely unable to comprehend this dark desecration. Stephen furiously demands to know why Formosus ever dared to claim the sacred bishopric of Rome.
Answer your crimes.
The tragic mock trial is a theater of cruelty, a dark nightmare unfolding within the house of God. Every fierce accusation hurled at the fallen pontiff is met with a forced, pathetic confession. The fallen pope is found entirely guilty of all charges, stripped of every honor he held in his life. To understand this sheer insanity, we must travel back into the deeply chaotic and tragic past of Rome. In the late 9th century, the Holy See was not a place of peace, but rather a truly vicious battlefield. The Church was completely controlled by utterly ruthless, warmongering Italian noble families. Religion was merely a powerful tool, a weapon used to manipulate the masses and hoard immense wealth. The absolute most dangerous of these factions was the powerful and deeply vindictive House of Spoleto. They firmly ruled the shadows of Rome, entirely eliminating anyone who dared challenge their authority. Years earlier, Pope Formosus proudly sat upon the throne. He was a dignified and highly respected man, with a long white beard and a solemn demeanor. The wise Formosus sought to restore order to the broken church. However, his political alliances deeply angered the deeply unforgiving Spoleto faction. He boldly crowned a rival emperor, directly challenging the Spoleto family's iron grip over Italy. This single, massive act of defiance sealed his fateful doom, igniting a bitter feud that transcended death itself. When Formosus finally passed away, the Spoleto nobles saw a grand opportunity for cruel retribution. They desperately needed a puppet, a weak-willed fanatic who would execute their absolute darkest desires. Enter Stephen VI, a fiercely ambitious bishop, entirely backed by the mighty Spoleto lords. Elevated to the absolute highest office, Stephen was bound by a dark pact to destroy his predecessor. He could not just erase Formosus from the sacred books. He needed to utterly humiliate his legacy. In the deeply dark stone chambers of the Vatican, sinister conspiracies were whispered in the silent night. The fierce Spoleto matriarch demanded a public spectacle to permanently terrorize her political foes. Stephen agreed to a dark plan so vile that it would forever stain the glorious history of the Catholic Church. He viciously ordered his royal guards to march into the sacred crypts and tear open Formosus's ancient tomb. They hauled the silent predecessor out of the cold earth, forcefully dragging it back into the living world of men. The fallen pope was fully dressed in the finest silks, prepared for a dark trial that defied all divine laws entirely. If you were ever forced to witness such a truly terrifying desecration, would you obey or rebel? For the deeply terrified clergy of Rome, disobedience meant facing the wrath of the Spoleto swords. They silently sat in paralyzed fear as the horrific Cadaver Synod officially commenced its judgment. Now, back in the gloomy Basilica, the tragic verdict is finally delivered by the raging Pope Stephen. "You are utterly condemned, Formosus," he roars, his voice echoing violently off the ancient stone walls. The pronouncement of absolute guilt is final. Formosus's entire papacy is declared fully null and void. Every single bishop he ordained, every sacred decree he signed, is instantly erased from existence. But the political revenge of Pope Stephen and his Spoleto masters does not just end with mere spoken words. They demand a physical punishment, a brutal degradation of the entirely defenseless fallen remnants. Pope Stephen silently signals his ruthless guards, who quickly step forward with cold, emotionless expressions. The terribly brutal desecration of the sacred vessel is about to become a terrifying reality. The flickering candles seem to suddenly dim as the soldiers lay their heavy hands upon the departed man. Without a single ounce of mercy, the brutal guards violently rip the golden vestments from the fragile frame. The magnificent silk robes fall completely away, revealing the tragic, faded husk of the forgotten old man. Pope Stephen silently watches with a cruel, triumphant smile, deeply enjoying the humiliation of his foe. He slowly steps down from his grand podium, drawing a sharp blade with malicious and calculated intent. According to the ancient chronicles, Stephen personally struck away 3 digits from the fallen hand. These were the sacred fingers Formosus once proudly used to deliver holy blessings in the name of God. The deeply darkened, withered digits fall to the cold stone floor with a truly sickening, hollow sound. Next, the royal guards wrap the desecrated remnants in the truly filthy, torn rags of a common peasant. The once supremely powerful leader of the Christian world is now reduced to a pitiful, wretched state. Heavy, thick, and deeply rough ropes are tied very tightly around the fragile ankles of the silent remains. The royal guards begin to drag the body out of the basilica, its frame scraping against the hard floor. The truly gruesome procession moves through the deeply dark, muddy streets of Rome in the dead of the night. The fallen vessel was violently tossed into a shallow, entirely unmarked grave, used for foreign strangers. But even the freezing cold earth is not enough to satisfy the relentless fury of the Spoleto faction. Just a few days later, Stephen firmly orders the fallen vessel to be dug up once again from the dirt. The fragile form is dragged further down the cobblestone paths, leaving a truly dark trail of morbid dust. They finally reach the banks of the Tiber River, its dark waters churning violently in the gloomy light. With a massive final heave, the brutal guards throw the desecrated remains of Formosus into the depths. The tragic form sinks beneath the muddy waves, seemingly completely lost to the unforgiving tides of history. But the angry people of Rome did not celebrate this truly brutal and unholy act of political revenge. Instead of striking deep fear into their brave hearts, the macabre spectacle sparked immense public outrage. According to the ancient chronicles, a massive, sudden earthquake shook the very foundations of the church. The citizens strongly believed this was a clear sign of divine wrath against Stephen's cruel blasphemy. Wild rumors spread that the fallen form of Formosus had miraculously washed ashore and performed miracles. A humble monk reportedly found the lost form, entangled in the fishing nets along the muddy riverbanks. The horrific tales of the dark trial spread wildly like wildfire, igniting the furious hearts of the mob. Do you honestly think any ruler can survive such intense hatred from the very people they govern? The answer came very swiftly as the fiercely enraged Roman citizens rose up against the corrupt pontiff. By the fiery summer of 897, the dark, battle-scarred streets of Rome were truly burning brightly. Massively angry rioters with soot-stained faces and bright, flaming torches violently swarmed the palace gates. They violently shattered the heavy wooden doors, demanding immediate justice for the dark desecration. The fiercely powerful Spoleto family could not protect their loyal puppet from the massive uprising. Pope Stephen VI was violently dragged from his glorious throne by the absolutely vengeful crowd. The very man who had stripped the fallen was now forcefully stripped of his own glorious papal authority. They brutally tore away his golden vestments, leaving him shivering in the cold, unforgiving night air. He was forcefully thrown into a dark, damp dungeon, wearing the terribly dirty rags of a common prisoner. Heavy, rusted iron chains were tightly fastened around the fragile wrists of the truly disgraced former leader. In the suffocating darkness of his cell, the fallen Stephen was consumed by absolute terror and despair. He sat trembling in the corner, deeply haunted by the macabre memory of the silent predecessor. Every single shadowy corner of the cold stone prison seemed to softly whisper the name of the fallen man. The undeniably harsh consequences of mixing dark politics with religion had finally caught him entirely. During the bleak month of August, the dark and final act of this gruesome tragedy was swiftly carried out. A towering figure emerged from the very deep shadows, his face completely hidden beneath a dark cowl. The silent assassin stepped forward, gripping a silencing instrument with a deeply menacing posture. In total silence, the ruthless shadow brought a swift and truly definitive end to his tragic existence. Stephen struggled wildly, but his frail and truly weakened body was no match for the brutal strength of his assailant. The deposed pontiff met his deeply tragic end, perishing entirely alone in the filthy Roman underground. His very desperate final cries faded into the cold silence of the damp and unforgiving stone walls. The grim saga of the tragic Cadaver Synod exposed the absolute darkest depths of medieval human nature. Much later, popes fully reversed Stephen's vile decrees, and reburied Formosus with full, sacred honors. Yet the truly horrifying memory of the fallen figure on the throne could never be entirely erased. It forever stands as a truly chilling reminder that absolute faith can easily be weaponized by the wicked. The tragic trial of the departed was not about divine justice, but about raw, unchecked political power. Written history will always remember the sheer madness that entirely engulfed the highest seat of Christendom. When the fragile line between politics and faith completely vanishes, humanity reveals its most demonic face. The waters of the Tiber River eventually washed away the tragic past, but the extremely deep scars remain. The infamous Cadaver Synod remains a dark stain, forever proving that absolute power corrupts the holiest men. Was Pope Stephen truly driven by pure madness, or a deeply ruthless political strategy? Comment your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this truly dark history, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more epic tales. Greetings.